So good morning again to everyone. So our topic for today is about conceptual design. And I think some of you have already started making the conceptual designs for your design plate. Uh, so I hope that, well, I'm sorry, this is a little delayed. And I hope that this can still help. Um, Basically, a conceptual design has the following determinants. One is the program and preferences, another is on-site form determinants, off-site form determinants, and then design theory. Now, program and preferences basically is the program which we already tackled before. So it's coming normally from the client, and then it's like collated by the architect. Aside from getting information from the client, the architect also gets information uh, from the site itself and makes some other interviews. And basically, it's the brief, the architectural brief, okay, that tells you everything that is supposed to happen in the design project. Now, for this lecture, we will have one sample only, one example which we will go through um, in, in step by step. No? And that example is a portion of a 25-hectare property in a mountainous area of Bukidnon, which will be developed to a place for camping or overnight staycation for people who want to enjoy life in the mountains. Okay, the facility should make full use of natural features of the site for the added attraction to the site. Now, our program can be as simple as this, perhaps narrated to you by the client over an interview, or it can even be a phone call or just a very casual conversation. In which case, you have to take note. Okay, what does the client want? So this is what he wants. In just one paragraph, everything is already there. So you also need to, as mentioned earlier, as the architect or the planner, you also need to gather data about the site. So for our example, this is the site. This is the base map. Although it is a bit poor example in the sense that it lacks some data. It doesn't have the scale bar, and then the road is supposed to be to show what kind of road, and also the width, and then um, these the topography, the contour lines are supposed to have indications and elevation numbers so that we know which is the top and the bottom. But I was not able to get that much. Well, I did not have that time to put in all the data. Um, but anyway, we'll assume that okay, the highest point is right here on top, and then the lowest point is these two concentration of uh, contour lines that you see here at the bottom. Okay, so on-site form determinants are things that you see on site. So this is like your site inventory. Okay, I I realize that until now, some of you do not know the difference between base map and a site inventory and the site analysis. So there are three things which are separate. I showed you earlier the base map. So the base map is the map that you will keep on using for any analysis or any other drawings that you're going to make. So with that base map, you will see later on how I keep using that map for my diagrams. So that's why here, sun and wind exposure, your favorite. There's never a site analysis drawing coming from any student without the sun and wind exposure, even if it is not necessary. So it's like it's the only thing that the students know. It's almost like that. I mean, it's very sad. Then the lot size and shape, location in relation to transportation system, significant vegetation, topography, and other natural features, prominent vistas and views of natural or cultural landmarks, and building scale and character. So these are the list of the things that you can uh, which are considered as form determinants on the site. Okay. Now going to our example, so it may look like this. Okay, my base map is supposed to show some vegetation. So now um, in my analysis, in my inventory, so I show those vegetations here all around. This is only part of the 25 hectare. Okay, this is the only part which will be developed. So you have the highway here, and then there are areas which are buildable because the land is more flat. Then there are some points of interest that you might notice when you go to the site. So you see that there's a cave here, and then the highest point is right over there, and then it has potential views, very good views. And then there's a basin here, which is very interesting in form. And then there's also a cave-like feature. There's a stone that looks like a cave, but it's not really a cave. Okay, and then you also notice that from this vantage point, there's a good view of this basin. So this is like an interior view. Okay, the same thing with this because this is higher in elevation, so it has a good view also of the other buildable area. So these are things that you consider. Okay, these are things in the on site, and then off site are things that are not on site. Okay, so things that can also um, affect your form. For example, this is the main highway, and then this asterisk here is where the site is located, and within a 2 kilometer radius area of 2 kilometer radius, we see that there are a lot of other um, points of interest. There's a lot of similar facilities. So we have here an adventure park and cottages, log house, log cabin, and then there are also resorts. There are falls, the Modest Falls, and Apple Spring Resort, and then there's also a falls. This um, Apple. Um, so therefore, there is a need to look at the trends. What are the things that people will be looking for? These are competition, and also the fact that there are falls there, and then also adventure something, um, adventure resort. So people can stay in your facility, and then so you have to provide amenities for that uh, as they go to the falls. Okay, so those are things that can affect the design. And then you have the design theory, which is basically your design concept. So, or any inspiration that you or the owner would want to put in the facility. For example, the owner wanted to put some uh, natural looking pool as much as possible. So this is not so natural, but at least the surrounding area around the pool were made of like made to look like stones. And then there's a view deck, probably referring to the one on the top. And then there's a house where families can rent, but then there are also tents that individuals or a smaller group can rent. So these are some of the ideas that will probably come up. Okay. Um, then there are more ideas actually. So these are just samples of them. And so you make a site analysis. Okay, so you're making use of the same base map, and with my inventory still there, so I try to overlay my site analysis making use of a red color. So I place here what is obvious. So the entry has to be here because it's the highway, and then it's the only one attached to the highway. And then this would be the best location for a parking, an admin office or building, and some coffee shop maybe. And then um, those buildable areas, this one is best location for a homestay, a cottage. And this one is also a good place for a cottage. It has view towards this inside, no, this basin here. But then this one is best for camping, for campsite. which it's like the picture before. And since it overlooks this area, so this is a very good place for the pool and recreation. And so for our points of interest, the highest look point is something good for a view deck. And then the cave is can be developed for cave exploration. And then the basin can be developed into a water catch basin, probably to so that you can collect rainwater, harvest rainwater. And then the cave-like feature can be developed into a grotto. Okay, and then we also take note that okay, because of the topography, this part here can be the main spine, main road, no, the ideal road for the road, because more or less this is flat, okay, and then it connects, and then it's in the middle. And yet, since there are trees around, it's also a good place for trekking or hiking. No? So we also put a hiking trail all around the perimeter of the area to be developed. Okay, so this is now your site analysis. So notice the difference. Okay, this is the base map. Okay, it lacks a few more information, but basically that's the base map. This is the site inventory, and then this is the site analysis. Okay, so if you still can't understand the difference between the three, really you must be um, a little hopeless. No, um, so please do your best. Do your best to understand. Um, so the conceptual design process. So what is the conceptual design? The concept plan explains the intended functional relationships among the site and project components. So it's like the site analysis is almost like that, but there's a little difference as I will show you later. No? So the plan may be supplemented with a concept statement that is a brief written articulation of the design intent of the proposed concept plan. And then character sketches or image boards with photographs may also convey the design concept. This is something that we did earlier before proceeding with detailed site design. Okay. Now, sometimes even with your conceptual design, you can attach some pictures because since everything is conceptual anyway, there's no final design yet. So you can put inspiration as pictures and then the client can understand it easier. Okay, so we have this from the book that is the basis for this lecture. So you have the project program. You also need to, of course, interview the community. These are what I mentioned earlier when you develop the program, and you also look at the site, what is suitable and what is not. Okay, so it's not always the owner only. So there are other factors to consider. So don't stop with when you write down your design brief or gather, you collate the information for the conceptual design. So you just don't stick to the owner. Okay, there is the others other than the owner, other people, and then there's also the site. And then you use up your whatever knowledge, skills, and values that you learn in the university, in your training, in this course that you're doing, and then you come up with your concept plan. Then you have three alternatives, maybe at least in your design, you're asked to submit three alternatives, three schemes. So the process has four simple steps. First is that you delineate primary and secondary conservation areas um, this way. Okay, so I'm sorry for that. No? Um, so step one is to delineate primary and secondary conservation areas. So in your site, you so determine what parts of the site you should not be touching. No? You should conserve. So then you should avoid. And then step two is the remaining site areas, delineate the locations which are suitable for development. Then step three, within areas suitable for development, delineate the development pods, considering the accessibility. So it's like from a bigger zone, you make smaller zones within them. So these are the what we mean by development pods. For example, if you say recreation zone, but then what are inside the recreation zone? So probably have a parks and playgrounds or open space, and then playground area, or I don't know, maybe um, hiking trail area or something. Um, and then finally, locate the primary and secondary circulation systems, considering the sizes and shape of the remaining developable areas. So um, there's also what we call the conceptual plan graphic. So all of these ideas, that process should be communicated graphically. Okay, so you should be able to communicate it. Um, the concept plan is a relatively simple diagram that shows how a project's major program elements relate to each other functionally and potentially visually, in terms of visual. Concept plans often provide contextual information about the site's biophysical and cultural features or design determinants that will be integrated into the development or redevelopment project. Okay, so among the things that are conveyed graphically are the open space, the vehicular circulation, these two topics we already mentioned that, including pedestrian circulation, other circulation. Then you have buildings, utilities, and views. Okay, so all of this actually um, we've somehow tackled uh, in the previous lecture. So it's like reminders, it's like just putting them all together. Okay. So regarding the zones, so on a concept plan, major uses of the site are typically portrayed diagrammatically as zones or bubbles. Okay. So it's like making a bubble diagram. Um, as the concept plan is refined, this activity or land use zones may be further subdivided to show building location and minor circulation patterns. Okay, so always start with major zones. Okay, example, even if you're designing a house, you can zone them to private, public, semi-private, semi-public, however you want it. And then next is that, okay, this semi-private or private, what is this? So this is actually master bedroom, bedroom one, bedroom two, and any other family room, for example. So that's what this means. No? As the planning process moves further into the design development phase, these zones or development pods are then subdivided into smaller areas, and eventually each area is designed in detail. Okay, so this is basically really the design process. You go from something very big to something detailed. So in addition to showing the location of proposed development zones, concept plans show the open spaces that will not be developed. So do not um, neglect to show the other areas within the site, because you're actually planning the site, and the site contains the developable areas and then the non-developable areas. So for example, here, our site, I simply zone them into two. This is the public zone because it's near the highway, so people gather here. And then there's a private zone because there will be people living, no, vacationing, camping, okay, staying in the house, cottages. So this will be the area for them. So And then there's like an intersection here, so to serve as like um, a transition. Okay. Next, we put in the nodes and landmarks. So these are, so the concept plan also may identify nodes and landmarks. These may be locations of either proposed buildings or other site features or significant existing buildings that will remain on or off site. Okay. So nodes may be highlighted graphically and typically include the following. So you can have your entrance to the sites or buildings. So you have to indicate where your entrance should be. And even if there's a okay, if there's a building on the site, it's best to indicate where the entrance should be because later on when you plan the roads, so that's one of the considerations, no, that the road has to lead to the entrance or at least has to be coordinated with the entrance of the building. Intersections of pedestrian and vehicle circulation systems. So because normally these had to be designed and these are where people and cars would converge. So nodes are normally places where a lot of activities happen because of the conversion of people, no? And of, well, cars, people in cars. Then scenic high points or scenic overlooks. So we saw that earlier in the site analysis. Landmarks include the following: specimen tree. There might be a tree which can be featured because maybe it's the tallest tree. Maybe it's a row of trees like cherry blossom trees that is very scenic. No? And bridges, unique buildings, and hilltop or other topographic features. So you know this when you visit the site. So you really have to visit the site to appreciate it. So and then let the artist in you somehow uh, identify these sites, no, these landmarks. So what happened here is that I so this now the parking and the coffee shop because this is the public zone. And then in the transition, I placed the admin building so that the admin building controls both the public and private zone. And so here we refer to this in the analysis as a good place for homestay. Okay, so we decided that this is for the homestay, also this. And then we decided also that, okay, so this is a um, good site for cave exploration. So let's make a cave exploration somehow activity something here. And let's make this into a grotto. And then the campsite, playground, and a view deck. Okay. So actually, there could be other things here like the basin, for example. I did not, it should be protected. There should be no activities here because this is where water will go there and then the catch basin, okay, catches the water and impounds them to be used, no, for the facility. But I did not bother to include that anymore. And finally, you have the paths and edges. So proposed activities on a site may relate to each other both functionally and visually. So the desired views between locations on the site or between locations on and off the site, for example, can be depicted graphically with arrows and or annotated labels. Okay, so the best design or graphic element to use is arrows. Conversely, screening of undesirable views may be warranted and this also may be portrayed graphically. So if there are unwarranted views, so you have to show them. If there are none, so there's nothing to show. So linear elements on a concept plan may represent the following: actual relationships. Okay, so sometimes the you need a unifying element like a line. Okay, now if you've been reading the book of Frank Ching on form, space, and order, so you see there many ways in which elements can be put together. No, even if they're supposed to be scattered all throughout. Okay, um, so my assumption is that you tackle this in your design one and two. Okay, first year design. Then circulation system, pedestrian, bicycle, vehicle, stormwater drainage patterns, utility lines, views, and edges. So other edges, because anything like road, hedges, like the trees or line of trees, can also be considered as edges. So therefore, since we identified that this is a good spine because of the topography, there's a road here. So from that road, we link the other features of the site. The homestay can be accessed from here. As you go up, you go to the homestay, or you go to the view deck. As you go further, you can go to the pools and playground, or go here for the cave exploration and grotto. And much farther, you can choose a homestay which is farther, more private compared to the other homestay, or you can go to the campsite. Okay, and then you also place here the hiking trail or around. Okay, um, I know it looks very simple, but this is actually good enough for a concept, design concept, or yeah, this is a conceptual diagram. Okay, then we can make schemes based on this, like what's happening here. So finally, I put in the roads. So number 4 is actually a greenhouse, which is a later addition in terms of the program. But these are these number 2 and 3. This number 3 is the coffee shop, and then you have an alfresco dining outside, and then the admin house is here. So this is now the transition area, and from here, um, the path of the hiking trail changed because of the topography. This is very steep. So number 7 is the view deck. So it has to go to meander like this. So to be able to go to the top. And then number 8 are tiny houses, which are actually another additional uh, requirement of the program. Um, this is an actual project, and then I wasn't able to edit the additional, because I did not have that much time. And so the campsite is here, and then the pool is here, and then um, so the hiking trail could have gone this way, but again, the topography does not allow it because it suddenly becomes a very steep here going down. So it was diverted here, and then the client later on said that after considering how difficult it is to climb up here to go to the view deck and then continue on, um, so the client wanted an option to either go um, further this way or to go back. Okay, so that's why there's an alternative route. And then so here you have the other homestay, 2 homestays, and then there's a parking for the homestays, and then you have the cave, and then the grotto. Okay, and so these are all just in case there's an activity here, so the hikers can go here. And this is supposed to be leading towards the for maintenance, no, towards the bottom of this basin. So that could be a scheme one. There could be another scheme, but at least you develop it that way. You know? So this is now a schematic design. This is more of a conceptual diagram. So I hope the presentation um, is clear. No? I mean, how to present it graphically is clear. Again, um, please try to um, master no? The identification of the type of drawings. So the base map compared to the um, site inventory, compared to the site analysis, and then compared to the conceptual diagram, and then the schematic design. Okay. Um, I'm sure that some of you might think that I'm the only one actually talking about site inventory. Probably the other teacher in planning is also talking about it, but in design, the rest of the teacher doesn't seem to care. whether there's a site inventory or site analysis. But I cannot fault them because they're not teaching planning, or maybe they're not really into it. Their expertise or specialization might be on some other things. But I'm trying to teach you something which is correct. And so please try to unlearn what is not correct. So, and then replace it with something which is correct. No? Um, because really it bothers me. It bothers me that until now I hear people asking what's the difference about this. It bothers me that people are showing the wrong information. If you notice in my site analysis, I did not bother to put the sun orientation and the wind orientation because they don't serve any purpose in the analysis. Doesn't matter where the sun rises or sets because it's the elevation, and the elevation is high, it's on a mountain and full of trees. So most of the time it's shaded. Um, so there's no path, no, there's no place there which can be exposed by from the sun for a long period of time. And then the wind, also the microclimate. So the wind is controlled also by all the trees. It's not necessary. So I did not place them. Okay, but I still came up with the site analysis. Um, then I did not bother to put the noise, although that could be placed there because in the highway. Okay. Um, but then I really did put the views because that's very important. So these are usually the things that you put in your typical site analysis. Um, so I hope this lecture helps in the design. If it's too late for the design now, so I hope that it it is helpful also in your succeeding years, no? Because you'll be applying, it's the same thing. You'll be applying no matter how complicated the project is. It's the same. Uh, it's the same process. Okay, so is there any other questions? As if there was a question, but is there any question, by the way? So if none, expect another quiz next week on Tuesday. Um, we will uh, we will meet on Tuesday this time. I plan to meet you. Um, I decided also to share this recording to my design class because a lot of them actually do not belong to my planning. So at least um, the expectations are clear, no? Um, so do you have any questions before we end? No questions. So thank you for coming, for listening, and see you next week. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
okay, goodbye.